What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of 30 Minutes of Help podcast. We are your hosts, Brandon Baker, joined as always by Joey Jackson and Matt Jackson. A reminder, we are brought to you by the Field of 68 Podcast Network. You can find us on YouTube, on Twitter, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your stuff at. Be sure to like, subscribe, do whatever it is you do on those sites. We appreciate you tuning in to talk some Razorback basketball with us. It kind of feels like the Hogs may have turned a corner this week. Had a big win against Michigan and then looked exactly how you would want them to look against in-state opponent UCA, a relatively, lesser opponent. But it can be hard to have takeaways from games like that sometimes, but I feel like we got everything out of that game that we wanted to. I mean, the team just kind of looked good in general in that game, but we'll get to that in a second. And then we got a little bit of news to wrap up at the end and some questions to discuss as we head into SEC play right around the corner. Arkansas only has two more non-conference games before they dive right into their SEC slate, which is just absolutely brutal right now. Um, but we'll get into all that in a moment. Let's start with this week. Michigan, big win for the Hogs, and a kind of a roller coaster of a game, right? I mean, they went down by what was it, like 15 points in the first half, and then came all the way back to lead by 18 points early, like midway through the second half, a huge turnaround, and then almost blew that lead to turn around and just win by 2 points with everything that was going on. But a big second half, a lot of good things, a lot of things that I liked. First and foremost, I think that DJ Wagner was huge to spark that second half comeback.
Absolutely.
He
Yep.
was hitting big threes, big shots, had some like a step back long two-pointer that was like a heat check. I mean, he just looked incredible in the second half of that game.
Yeah. He was giving me heart attacks when he shot the shot and gave me heart attacks when he made the shot. But yeah, overall, what a game. Roller coaster, no doubt about it. Uh, I am I was very excited to see what a game with Adu in for as long as he could be felt like, and I feel like that's what has changed. It's yes, we have players clicking, but having him playing, what did he play? 26 minutes? Is that what it
Yep.
is? 26 minutes. It's just a game changer, especially when you're playing an opponent like Michigan who had two 7-footers on you, and it's just the defensive intensity changed. We moved the ball differently. We were able to get it into the paint. Overall, I was thrilled with seeing that change, and of course, we'll talk about it later. Same thing with what happened with the UCA game, but having him on the court is so crucial, and I feel like the transition from an unhealthy team to a healthy team is what that corner was that we had to overcome, and I feel like we've done it.
I think Adu's impact is also a little underrated in terms of offensively because I think you're exactly right, Matt. I mean, this is an all SEC defender that came in and it's getting more healthy. So obviously, like our defense is going to look a little better with Adu healthy. But I think that the ability to get him the ball in the post, his ability to set screens, I think we suddenly become a much better half court offense with him on the court. And I think that shouldn't be overlooked, right? I mean, we've talked about how this team kind of relies too much on forcing turnovers and like if they can't run in transition, they haven't played as well. But I feel like we haven't seen that in the last few games with Adu more healthy because they have a new dynamic and a different layer to their offense.
And not to mention, like, just the fact of having a big body in the post, like Brazil, Avicic, they both kind of hang out at the 3-point line. They're stretch fours. We saw, I think it was in the Michigan game, we saw two lobs to Adu in a half court offense, and then I want to say we saw it against UCA too.
Yeah.
So like just having someone down there who we can dump it to, and we know that we're going to get some easy buckets off that is it's going to go a long way throughout the season.
Exactly. And Brandon, you made a good point about the screen setting too. I mean, Adu's screens are different than Big Z's screens, Like he's hitting you like a truck versus Big Z who's hitting you like a smaller truck. So I'm very excited to see what like pick and roll type offense we can use with him. Of course, we're not going to get the
the pop action as much as we do with Big Z, but having him dive and be a threat can get Boogie open for a mid range jumper or open for a three. I mean, his his impact on the offense, like you said, is much more than people assume it's going to be.
Yeah, and speaking of Big Z too, he does bring like we've seen the dynamic that he brings. I mean, he's still shooting a really good percent from three. But in this Michigan game, I feel like we saw yet again kind of like the downfall of what like what could be a problem when he's on the court, right? And I don't want to put too much weight on it because I think that he had rolled his ankle just a few days prior to this game, only played like 6 minutes, I believe, like 7 minutes and was a -10 in those minutes in this game. And so like plus minus isn't everything. You have to take everything into context, but I just feel like there's been so many miscommunications on defense when Big Z's on the court. And he just doesn't quite have the lateral quickness to make up for that if he's not in the perfect positioning defensively. I think he's okay like defensively if he can if it can click for him from a schematic standpoint, like if he can just be in the right places, I think he's got the length and enough quickness to like not just be a problem every time we put him on the court defensively. But I just feel like that there's been so many miscommunications and stuff that combined with his shortcomings, we just continue to see him kind of struggle in some of these bigger games against teams that can really stretch him out to the perimeter.
And I also, want to add Michigan's kind of a special case scenario for anything. Just you're not going to face two 7-footers, let alone a 7-footer like Wolf, who is
Golly.
honestly it. Based on what I saw out of him, I haven't seen much outside of the Arkansas game, but he's a first rounder. Like he will make a huge impact in the NBA. Just he does. Brett and I were talking about this. He doesn't move like a 7-footer. He's a
Not
seven
at all.
footer that moves like a two guard, a three. Like he is so fluid in his motions. He's an incredible passer. But I say all of that to say one of the biggest miscommunications we saw from Big Z was him and Davis trying to pop out to Wolf shooting a three, and Wolf had that perfect dump down down to Golden to cut the lead down to maybe two or tie the game. It was late in the second half, but it's just those little miscommunications that we if we were to stop those little things from happening, that's when we turn the corner and we say, yeah, we're a title contender. It all starts with those little things, but like I said, you're not going to face a 7-footer that has the range that you're going to have to, put a guy like Big Z on him out at the perimeter. Hopefully, we kind of find a way to shadow his, the extension of his defense, keep him kind of hidden in the paint. And with that said, I think we've got three of the best shot blockers in the entire college basketball,
I think Arkansas is like a top 15 team right now in terms of block shots and block percentage or something like that.
Mhm.
And I've done some research too, just on the thought that teams always catch fire against us from 3-point range. I see that a ton on social media and everything. And there are some teams that have, right? Like Illinois shot, what, 47,
Mhm.
48%.
Yeah.
But the issue has been volume, not percentage when it's teams versus Arkansas. I believe Hogs Stats tweeted earlier this week something about this is like the most three-pointers that Arkansas is ever allowing attempted against them, but it's one of the better percentages that they've ever forced their opponents into, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. So like it's not that teams are catching fire, they're just shooting a ton of threes. And I
Yeah,
think that a big part of that is because we're deterring them so much on the interior. Right? Like we
100%.
blocked so many shots that teams are kind of settling for more shots and we're also giving up open looks, miscommunications, things like that. Like we're not a perfect defensive team by any means, but the length that the team has, I think, is really forcing more outside jumpers.
Yeah, and I do want to say because I looked at this not too long ago, because I had to provide myself with more comfort about that Illinois loss. They haven't shot that good since. That's what
Yeah.
bothered me so much. They shot nearly 50% from three. They haven't shot over like 32%
Yeah.
since
It
us.
was the game of
It's
their lives. Yeah.
Yeah, I was so mad seeing that. I was like, surely they shot at least 40. Nope. Nope.
No, I think they're an underrated team, but they will never have another game like that. And I mean, we didn't
Mhm.
help, right? Like we gave them some open looks, but there was so many shots that they just hit that there's nothing you can do about in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah. But since then, I just feel like I mean, we exactly what we've been talking about. The Hogs are getting healthier, and I think that getting everyone on the court for more minutes will get the experience needed to eliminate some of these miscommunications, right? Like Cal has been like adamant over and over again talking about how we haven't been able to scrimmage at all in the off season or through the early season because we just don't have enough guys to do it. Some of that is on him for only taking 9 guys. He said in one of his recent post-game pressers that he will probably reconsider that strategy moving forward because he expected that if you ever have an injury, then you still have 7, 8 guys and you're still fine. But he didn't expect it to be the entire non-conference where he's having to deal with that kind of situation.
Okay.
But I do believe that the more we see this team together, the fewer, mistakes they make. It's just how quickly can they put it together as they're about to hit a brutal schedule when SEC play comes up. Um, but before that, speaking of, like I said, they still have 2 more games against non-conference opponents, relatively bad teams, kind of like what UCA was when they played them in North Little Rock this past week. Really, like I said, kind of hard to have takeaways from a game like this sometimes, but it was nice to see the Hogs look how you wanted them to look from the start of the game. Because I feel like there have been a few mid-major opponents this year early on where they struggled or they were like it was like a 2-point game with 10 minutes left in the second half, and then Arkansas would turn it on for like an 8-minute spurt and they'd win by like 16, 17 points. With UCA, I felt like they just kind of took control from the start and never really looked back. Like UCA made a couple of runs, hit some tough shots, but there was never really a moment where we were just thinking, what's going on here?
And that was my biggest takeaway, Brandon, is I don't know if it's something in the Arkansas air or what it is, the culture of the Razorbacks. You don't see a full 40 minutes of domination. I couldn't tell you the last time we saw a game from start to finish that we were just completely in control. And that's what I like to see most out of the UCA game. Um, like even we didn't see it at all last year. I don't think there was a single game where we just were completely dominant full way through. It's always like a second half thing, or we'll go in spurts. Like we were extremely dominant for the first 10 minutes of the second half against Michigan, but to go into a game that you fully expect to win. You don't want to like play with your food, some might say, and it did make me feel a lot better about the team to know that we came out, we got the job done. We didn't mess around. It wasn't any back and forth. Even for the first 2 minutes, it was none of that. We came out ready to play, and we played for the full 40. So I did like to see that.
Yeah, and one player in specific that showed back up. I was kind of worried about him there for a little bit because of his inconsistency, more or less, on offense. And that was Boogie Fland. He definitely performed a lot better. Field goal percentage was much better, shooting 7 for 11. But also, his defense, got to watch this game in person. And he is just one of those guys, like, I would never want to dribble the ball in front of him because he was bullying UCA. He really was. He was bullying them. And I love it.
Let's not get too carried away about that defense, because remember, like 2 podcasts ago, I don't even remember who our opponent was. We were talking about if his defense would hold up against higher level opponents.
Yeah, yeah.
So
But I
he
will
is
tell you
still a
what,
freshman.
I get that. I get that. But he doesn't back down from that. I mean, yeah, Michigan, I will say he kind of got bullied a few times by their guard. But defensively, he's holding his own for the most part. But if he can find, if maybe, let's just, I don't know the guards on SEC teams, but let's just say some random guard comes in and they're just less experienced. Maybe they come off the bench and he's on them. If he can dog them and force 1 or 2 turnovers, I mean, those are momentum shifters. And I feel like he definitely took advantage of a few of those guys. I mean,
He maybe was on Lane Taylor a few times, which is UCA's golden child. But let's see, number three, can't even say that name, Braden. He, poor guy, you know. I mean, he got after him. I think he forced all of his turnovers that he had. Um, I
And
mean,
and I'm not taking away from the terrific defender that Fland is. He's incredible.
yeah.
I worry that he's had games where he's had five steals. He had five against UCA, didn't he? Five steals.
Uh,
Yes.
Yeah.
yes.
Yes, he did.
He's put up high steal games.
Mhm.
I think he had probably three against Euler.
Yeah.
He's had some great games. I just know that guards who play like that, they fall victim to gambling. They don't,
Hmm.
stay seated. I with how quick he is and how well he moves defensively. I don't want him to fall victim to these gamblings and, do this to better guards and start getting beat. I want him
Yeah.
to stay a good defender with even without the steals, just someone who we can trust to lock down, the starting point guard of every team.
My bigger concern too with that also is the effort required from him to hound a ball handler because he has become like 80% of our offense in terms of just being the
Right.
facilitator, handling the ball every possession. Obviously not 80% of our scoring, but like everything we do runs through Boogie. And he's always starts with the ball in his hands. A lot of times he finishes with the ball in his hands, whether that ends with an assist or him putting up a shot. And the one thing that we've really seen him struggle with consistently throughout the season is shooting, and more specifically shooting inside the 3-point line. Because I think he's still shooting like 44% or something like that from three. God,
But
40% from three, but inside the 3-point line, he's shooting like 45%, which is not great for a guard. And even against Michigan, I think it was like 33%. So the effort and the legs. I mean, if he's playing that many minutes and being that important offensively, how is he still going to hold up doing this defensively against even better guards?
But
Right.
to counteract that, I know we're throwing around a lot of ifs, but with what we saw from DJ Wagner stepping up and kind of, taking the load of that kind of facilitator point guard role more often, I think that gives Boogie a little more leeway to, kind of exert that effort. That's like I said, a big if. We saw two games where Wagner was incredible. Will that keep up the rest of the season? Who's to say? But I really liked, that we could count on another guard to step into that role.
Yeah, and I think too, by no means would I have Boogie guarding like the best guard on their team. You know, we like Brandon said, we do need him fresher on offense. I think the offense runs smoother with Boogie leading it. But I will say having Wagner as the defender on their best guard is easy. Like, let's do that. He's a great defender, a great sit down and lock him up defender. So I think we keep really doing what we're doing. I mean, and we're looking good. I just loved highlighting that Boogie can get after some guys, and I think he's going to cause a lot of momentum shifting plays because of that.
And how about talking about defense? How about Trevin Brazil becoming a versatile defender
Oh
against like
my
multiple positions?
goodness!
Did you guys see that coming too after
Yeah.
all of our
Oh,
podcasts last season? I think that's
yeah,
exactly what we said a year ago,
we're
right?
the leading experts in the industry. Like we knew that was gonna happen.
Right.
He's been
Golly.
he's been great.
He's been
I mean
incredible.
he's not in contention for SEC Player of the Year or anything like that, but he's gotten so much better. And I don't know if it's the system being able to put him in spots where he succeeds more, if he's maybe just healthier, another year removed from his knee injury. I don't know, maybe a combination of all of that. But not only his ability to get up and block shots, right? We've always seen that as a help side shot blocker, but he's holding his own in the post. He's closing out on the perimeter. He's not getting blown by. He's not perfect defensively, but he's been a very good, versatile defender that has made the team a like he's been a very net positive guy out there that has really helped the team defense as a whole because of his length and his ability to move on the perimeter more than someone like Big Z would. in the same
Well,
spot.
he's playing more aggressive overall, right? We see him
Yeah.
crashing the offensive glass. I think a lot of it, to your point, Brandon, is he's further removed from that injury that, kind of derailed his confidence. We spoke all last year about how he just felt like he wasn't playing confidently. And now it's like an entirely different player. Like he doesn't have that burden of having to be the best guy on the court. He doesn't he's not playing like he's nursing an injury. He's playing like a basketball player, and it's working out extremely well for the team so far.
Yeah, and I think last year it was also too playing not to make a mistake, and now he's just playing to play the game. I mean, like we mentioned, crashing the offensive glass. Gosh, I would have loved that last year. We needed that last year, and he's doing it, and we need it this year just as much. And I mean, he's getting putbacks, he's getting lobs in the half court setting, he's making steals off the like sitting down there trying to get an offensive rebound. For instance, against Michigan, that was one of the craziest things. We didn't score off of it, but Brazil got a steal on the inbound pass. I mean, it's those types of plays that just increase my respect for him
And
because,
I think
yeah, I was gonna say going into the season, I didn't have like a ton of confidence in Brazil, really. I mean, maybe a few good plays here and there, but he has easily changed my opinion of him just this week.
And he had the game saving block
Yes,
against Golden. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
And I
he's a
think
big
I think
player.
make your free
I think
throws. Make
most
your
of
free
it
throws.
is probably schematically too, right? And in two different ways. First, having another big man that's capable to play beside him, notably Adu, but he does fine again with Big Z on the court as well, so that he can show off his help side defense because I think that's where he makes a lot of plays happen, right? But also from the standpoint of he's not asked to do anything offensively, right? You don't have to have the ball in his hands. He doesn't have to make
Mhm.
plays. He doesn't have to take pull up jump shots. He never has to dribble hardly, right? It's the role that he is in alongside with the personnel that he now plays with. I think it's just unlocked his game. And I think that's something that we didn't see last year and that Cal has really brought out of Brazil this year.
Yep.
Excuse me. And just to highlight too, we talked about it earlier, but Jonas Adu had another really good game against UCA, as you would probably expect because they're a little bit smaller of a team. So someone like Adu that's just big, right? I think he was 100% from the field, had 13 points and 4 rebounds in only 24 minutes, which is great to see. He got a lot of good run against a team that just kind of let him get his feet under him. I think he's just continuing to get back to being more healthy. I really he like we've talked about it already. He opens up the game on both ends of the court for the Hogs. So I love to see him have a game like this. I hope to see it more in the next couple of games to where we don't have to overplay him, but he can just get in there and just kind of dominate, right, against a team that doesn't have an SEC caliber big.
Yeah.
But all in all, I just think that this UCA game was just exactly what you wanted to see. There is nothing that really stood out to me that I just didn't like that much.
Well, and before we move on, I just want to say Knox stepped up in a big way this week. He played so well against Michigan, even, in the limited minutes. I think he contributed 5 points to that game. He played extremely well. I mentioned our last podcast that he played like he was a step slower than everybody else on the court. I didn't see that at all this week. And then he had a monster game against UCA. So really happy to see that he's kind of getting his footing in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do
And
hope that he finds his role more because, like you said against Michigan, I think Billy Richmond was sick that game. That's something we haven't really mentioned. That Richmond was sick that game, only played 1 minute. Thero played through the illness against Michigan, didn't log a single minute against UCA. But Knox stepped up big in both of their absence, right? Because that's kind of that position he plays, that 2-3-4 hybrid, and he did. He stepped up when he was needed, whether it was scoring or just being, serviceable, being another body that was usable out there.
and made me stand up out of my seat because he just absolutely dunked on a guy. I mean, it was gorgeous. I loved it. But yeah, Knox finally coming. It's just we're finally coming together, and it's really making me happy.
Yeah. It feels like they turned the corner, man. And that after that first half against Michigan, the last three halves of basketball have just looked like you expect them to look. They're getting healthier. things just seem to be clicking. Fingers crossed we see it keep moving. For now, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back with a little bit of news to wrap up, and then talk about the remaining schedule as we head into SEC play. So we will be right back.
As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 as we all get ready for the best month of the year, March Madness. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use the bonus code FIELD150 and you will get $150 in free bets on your first wager with BetMGM, regardless of whether or not you win that first bet. Here's the best part. All you need to do is deposit and bet $5 of your hard-earned money. This is how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD150. That's FIELD150. Deposit at least $5 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $150 in bonus bets regardless of the outcome of your bet. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD150 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available in one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient when I have to go cover games in Philly or New York, which happens quite a bit. When you cross state borders, you just log into your existing account and fire away. You don't have to create a new account in each state. It's easy, it's simple, and it's clean. And most importantly, we have some fun stuff coming up for the conference tournaments and for the NCAA tournament. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boost, and my personal favorite, a nice little parlay boost here and there. So download the BetMGM app and sign up today. Big news, guys. I am thrilled to announce that we have partnered with Autograph, a company founded by the GOAT himself, Tom Brady. The Autograph fandom app gives you access to the best college hoops content, fan contests, and exclusive rewards like discounted tickets, all for doing the things that diehard fans like you already do, following your favorite team in the news and listening to podcasts just like this one. When Tom, and yes, I am calling him Tom, we're on a first name basis these days, co-founded Autograph, he had one mission in mind: change the fan experience for the better. It works like this. You get all of your college hoops content you want in one place. You get articles from your favorite writers, pods from your favorite hosts, contests from your favorite creators, all on the feeds and the sites that you already enjoy. But instead of having to go to all these different places, it all comes to you in one spot, the Autograph fandom app. But here's the best part. The more content that you consume, the higher you rank in the app. As you consider the level up in status on the app, you can unlock unique rewards curated exclusively for you. So download the free Autograph app in the App Store and use the referral code F68, that's F68, or tap in at the link in the description below or in the podcast app of your choosing to start earning points for doing something as normal as listening to this very podcast.
All right, so some quick news. Boogie Fland was actually named SEC Freshman of the Week for his performances against Michigan and against UCA. Did not have the best shooting game in terms of overall field goal percentage against Michigan, probably because he was playing in Madison Square Garden in front of a lot of family, and he is still a true freshman playing in the biggest game of his career to that point, right? I mean, it's understandable. He still averaged 18 points per game on the week, 8 assists per game, which is crazy for a freshman running the offense, with a 5.3 assist to turnover ratio in the on the week. That's like top 10 in the nation type stuff if you maintain that assist to turnover ratio. Still had three rebounds per game, 3.5 steals. Still 45% overall from the field thanks to his big game against UCA. Shot 36% from deep this week, shooting roughly 40% on the season, and didn't miss a free throw in either game this week. So big week for Boogie Fland. Like Matt kind of alluded to earlier, has had a little bit of inconsistency with his shooting, but he just continues to impress, continues to get better. Moving forward, Arkansas does not play again until Saturday. They get a whole week off. It's when they play North Carolina A&T in Bud Walton Arena. And then after that, they go for 9 consecutive days before they play their final non-conference game against Oakland. That will be on Monday, December 30th. So over the course of about 20 days, the Hogs only play 3 games, which I think is couldn't come at a better time with guys, Big Z's ankle, Nelly's wrist seems to be doing better. Adu's obviously coming back from injury, doing well with guys that are sick, with Richmond and Thero. I mean, that's over half the team that I just named, right? Like we have 9 guys, and I just talked about 5 of them. So I think that that couldn't come at a better time. And then you're also even in the 2 more games that they play. North Carolina A and T. I keep wanting to say AT and T. North Carolina A and T is ranked 312th in Ken Palm, 315th in the net rankings. Oakland is right around 190 in Ken Palm and over 200 in the net rankings, right? So these are 2 more like tune-up games that just like UCA, you want to see guys get some run, don't play too many minutes, get things, get their feet under them, get some confidence for someone like Nelly Davis, for someone like Carter Knox, let Billy Richmond run some of the offense. These are the kind of games that you just let guys continue to find that rhythm and work out some of those miscommunications defensively. This is the prime opportunity to do that because if you do have miscommunications, if something goes wrong, you can easily overcome it in games like this. So kind of what I'm looking for from the Hogs in those 2 games. Um, but not a lot else to talk about until SEC play starts after January. But oh boy, when they start SEC play, it gets crazy fast. They open conference play with a trip to current AP #1 Tennessee, and then back-to-back home games against number 17 Ole Miss and number 7 Florida. The Hogs start SEC play with 6 consecutive Q1 games. At the moment, they do not have a single game on their SEC schedule that is Q3 or Q4. That's very uncommon for the entire conference play to be in those top 2 quadrants. So the SEC, I don't think, has ever been as good as it is this year. There's people, I think Lenardi released his latest bracketology, and he said that he could see 13 SEC teams making the tournament. I don't remember ever seeing more than 10. Like, that's crazy how good the conference is this year. So,
Yeah.
with all that being said, a couple of questions before we log off for the day. First of all, speaking of this SEC schedule, how many games do you think Arkansas needs to win in SEC play of their 18 total games to comfortably make the tournament? And I'll kind of jump in and say that I think that if 13 teams make the tournament, you could see some teams with a losing record actually get in, right? Like one of those bottom teams could maybe be 8 and 10 in conference play, depending on what their non-conference schedule looked like, and still get into the tournament, right? So, what do you guys think that Arkansas's record kind of needs to be in SEC play to be comfortable in the tournament?
To be comfortable, I think we need 10. I mean, I want a good seed in the tournament. Like, not, it doesn't have to be spectacular. I find it hard for just, being a team that was built from scratch, making a, let's say, #1 seed in the tournament. I don't expect that. But in order to be comfortable sitting where we can make a run, we need at least 10, I feel like. I mean, those are going to be 10 good wins. I mean, like you said, no quadrant 3 or 4s. They're good wins. So I think 10 gets us very comfortable. I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I agree with the 10. With how good the SEC is this year. I mean, you look at sitting right now, the lowest team is South Carolina with only 3 losses. Like that, I mean, that's a strong, pre-conference record. But I think that with how strong the conference is, I think there's a lot of teams with uncertainty around what they expect the in conference schedule to or in conference record to be. So I mean, you've got Auburn and Tennessee, who being the top couple teams in the SEC, you would typically expect those front runners to get 15 wins, but it's so up in the air they could drop down to 10 wins with just how I keep saying it, how strong the conference is. So yeah, I think 10 wins gets us in a really good position. I wouldn't be worried if we make the tournament with 10 wins. I think 9 wins we still get in, but there's a little more teetering. I think it's more like 60% in, 40% not type thing. But I just feel like there's it's such an even playing field across the board in the SEC that there's going to be a lot of teams that lose games that they're supposed to and win games that they're not supposed to, that it's going to have a major effect on just the overall win-loss records,
A lot
from
of
a paper
cannibalizing
standpoint.
within the conference,
Yeah,
right? A
yeah,
lot of teams beating each other out but I think that it's going to be so hard for the selection committee this year because, like, I mean, I was just looking and the net rankings aren't everything right now. Like, I understand that we're a third of the way through. Things are going to change a lot, but as things sit right now, you've got Auburn's number one in the net, Tennessee's number two, Florida's number five, Kentucky's number seven, and Alabama's number 10. That's
it's
five teams that
insane.
are in the top 10. Like, you lose all five of those games to top 10 teams in the net ranking. Like, will the selection committee really hold that against you that much, or do they just kind of wash? Especially if you're competitive in those types of games, right?
Yeah,
Like if
Right.
we come out and start getting blown out by some of these teams, that's different.
yeah, we
Then your
can't get
nine and
blown out.
nine record that changes. But you're competitive in every game, and you go 9-9 in conference in this conference right now. I think that gets you in, but to Matt's point, it probably doesn't leave you with a very good path, right? You're probably a nine seed, and you got to play a one seed in the second round, and so yeah, that's not ideal. But
They can't show SEC favoritism. You know, they got to give credit to their other conferences, which I don't even know what the conferences are anymore, who's in what.
they
But
change every year.
yeah, golly, the Big 12's like what, the Big 13, 14? I don't even know. But yeah, I mean, 9-9, I think would put us, like you said, probably in that nine seed or something. But
So follow-up question with that then. Do you think Arkansas is ready to do that? Do you feel like with what we've seen lately, I understand that there's been a lot of injuries and a lot of weird stuff, ups and downs, close games, but do you feel like they're ready for SEC play right now?
I think so. I think just based on what we saw in the Michigan game, like we overcame a lot in that game. We overcame a big deficit. We battled against a team that is incredibly strong. I mean, that's a tournament team in itself. Like I'm very confident in where we're at. Not to mention this, like you said earlier, Brandon, this kind of big stretch of only two games, and our guys have the opportunity to get more healthy and kind of build up their stamina, get some conditioning in. Like I'm very confident coming into SEC play.
yeah, I would have to agree. I mean, there are some things that still need to be tweaked, still need to be mixed up, which you can't say they're ready for SEC until you see them against a SEC opponent. But I mean, shoot, you take on Michigan. I feel like you could take on a few teams in the SEC as well. I mean, you saw a lot that you'll probably see, just specimens that you're gonna have to just deal with. They're gonna get their points, and you got to deal with it. You got to overcome it, and they've been doing that. I mean, that game against Michigan just showed the grit of the team, and that's what you need in
And
the
you've
SEC.
you've seen the confidence building.
Hmm.
Like I know that if we come out, in first game of SEC play and we get blown out, I know that can be a major hit to confidence. We just can't let that happen. Like we've got to ride
On
this
the road at
confidence out.
Tennessee is going to be tough
It's
too in
going to
that
be
first
Yeah,
game.
tough. Yeah, so we just can't if we do lose that game, if we do lose that game in a blowout, we can't let that affect our confidence too much because I feel like right now we're riding a really good high.
Yeah, and there's still just a lot of questions that we're just going to have to answer as we get into SEC play, right? I mean, our guys, like you said, confidence is building. Are they peaking at the right time? Or is this truly a corner that we're turning? Is this nine-man rotation going to rear its head a little bit when we're going up against better competition night in and night out? Are we going to be able to continue our shooting the way that we've been shooting? I mean, Arkansas is currently third in the SEC in three-point percentage as a team. I don't know if you
It's
guys realize
impressive.
that. And they're shooting
that's
the lights out
crazy.
right now. So, I mean, a lot of questions that we're going to have to see answers to. But I do agree with you guys both that I feel like lately they've turned a corner. Confidence is building. I think that they're as ready as they're going to be, right? Like we brought in the talent on this team for a reason, and we're starting to really see it come together finally. This whole preseason non-conference slate has been learning to play together because they didn't really get much of an off season to do that. But I think that it's starting to come together at the right time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all we have for today. Uh, I always appreciate you guys tuning in to talk some Razorback hoops with us. Reminder, we're brought to you by the Field of 68 Podcast Network. You can find us on Twitter, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your stuff. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, whatever it is you do on those sites. I have been your host, Brandon Baker, joined as always by Joey Jackson and Matt Jackson. And as always, go Hogs.